Hi, Kate Meredith back again here in Mr. Johnson's classroom at GET High School in Galesville, Wisconsin. Here to take one more look at a couple of tricky points of the Global System Science sampling carbon dioxide experiment. And at the end of this experiment, you are going to be moving from doing a qualitative comparison, just comparing the color changes to one another, to a quantitative comparison, actually putting a number on how much carbon dioxide does each sample have relative to the other sample. And since we have pure carbon dioxide sample, we're going to be able to figure out what is the percentage of carbon dioxide in each one of the samples from this experiment. So to show you what I'm talking about, I just set up our pure carbon dioxide sample, one with the dilution with the indicator from my breath, and then our control, which just has the bromothymol blue in water. And for this, you're going to need an ammonia stock solution for your class. And I found the most difficult part of this was actually finding ammonia that didn't have some pretty color in it. So after looking for a while, I did find plain white ammonia, and I followed the recommendations in the teacher's guide of diluting it 1 part ammonia to 25 parts water. And I tested that out on a sample of 15 milliliters with my bromothymol blue indicator in it. I bubbled some of my breath through there and then tested it out to make sure that it changes back within about 50 drops of the stock solution. And Mr. Johnson had these very nice droppers, and have your students play around with whatever droppers you use, because it's very easy to ruin your entire sample if you're not careful with your dropper. So when we get going here, all we have to do is just take some of our sample, and I'm going to remove this so that I can see what's going on here. And you're going to take some of your sample. You want your control right next to your sample, and you're slowly going to drop and count how many drops it takes to turn. And at first I'm going to go 10 drops, and then I'm going to give it a little swirl and take a look, and as I can see that went back to its same color. And here we are, 85 drops of ammonia stock solution later. And you can see our volume in our jar here has increased a little bit, but I'm not too concerned about that, and the color change is getting fairly close. And when you get down to this point, warn your students that you're going to have to add drop by drop and give it a swirl. Because you'll see, as you saw there, we have a sudden color change, and then it slowly starts to go back. So you want to take your time on these last steps of the experiment, because once you overshoot the color, you got to start all over again. Another thing, if you want to be very particular on this experiment, that you might want your students to do, and also depends a little bit on the strength of your stock solution, if your volume in your test jar is starting to get too high, you might want to add additional plain water to your control, so that the bromothymol blue is also at the same dilution as in your test. So I'm going to add a few more drops and invite you back in a minute, and we'll see what we ended up with. Welcome back, and here we are at 103 drops. I'm satisfied that the color in my control group looks very close to the color in my sample jar. I can recommend to the students to, once they're happy with the number of drops, to add one more drop and see at what point does it start to look a little darker, and then just make a decision then as to which number you want to record. But at 103, this is where we stand. And it's the same procedure for each one of the samples.